Okay, so I think we can start this session. A warm welcome from my side, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, from wherever you are joining us. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to this seventh webinar of our NDC4 webinar series. My name is Tizian Pfeiffer. I work at ProClima for the C42 project, and today I will be your facilitator and guide you through this event. Let me start with a few introductory words about this event. Today's webinar is part of the NDC4 webinar series, which shines a light on the importance and potential of the cooling sector for more ambitious and enhanced NDCs, and also disseminates holistic mitigation approaches. This NDC4 webinar series is provided by the project Cool Contributions Fighting Climate Change 2, which is C42, and is part of the International Climate Initiative, ICI, and financed by the German Federal Ministry of Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety and Consumer Protection. Before we go into more detail, please let me explain some technical information. I would kindly ask you to please stay muted during the session. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat, and we will also have Q&A sessions after the presentations. Please be aware that this event is being recorded and will be later published on our website, but only the slides and the audio is being published, so neither the chat nor the videos. Today I am supported by my colleague Paul Thielmann. Please contact him in case of any technical problems or individual questions. You can find his email address in the chat. And now to get started, it would be great to get to know a bit who is here, and also to see if the chat is working. So my question to all of you would be, from which country are you participating in this event? Please write your country in the chat to get an idea. Okay, yeah, thank you. And feel free to continue writing your countries in the chat. So we definitely have people from very different parts of the world. Nice that you're participating. So let's switch to the agenda. Have a look at the agenda. I'm very happy to announce two speakers here today. At first, Paola Bustillos Castillo from the GIZ ProClima team will give an introduction on why the cooling sector matters for ambitious NDCs. And after that, Irene Papst from Heat GmbH will give a presentation on the tools and guidance to integrate the cooling sector into NDCs. And this will be followed by the cooling NDC consultation hour, or half an hour, 20 minutes, where we will discuss your questions on this topic. So let me now give the floor to Paola Bustillos, who will explain us why the cooling sector matters for ambitious NDCs. And before handing over, I will say a few introductory words about Paola, who is a chemical engineer with a master's degree in environmental studies and has extensive professional experience in international cooperation projects focusing on climate protection, climate policy, and energy efficiency initiatives. And this being said, I give the floor to you, Paula. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tician. A very warm welcome from my side as well. Can you please go to the next one? Today, I have the pleasure to make a short introduction, first of all, from the question why cooling matters, but also a short introduction where working in the last time called Cool Contributions in Climate Change, Part 2. Next one, please. As I have mentioned before, I just wanted to take into account, or at least to raise this question to you, why cooling sector is important? Why this at the end of the day? Most of us, we have cooling appliances at home, but we haven't considered what does it mean the cooling sector when we are talking about climate change. And I wanted to share with you some scenarios and also some information that was presented last year during the COP in Dubai. And this graphic here shows the cooling installed capacities what we install at global level. And also, if we consider different scenarios, for example, as business as usual scenario, this capacity can be growth with a growth factor for 2.6%. And also, if we consider that people are going to have some more money and improve access to cooling appliances, this growth can be even higher, in this case 2.8 factor, which means that this electric consumption can be doubled by 2050. And also, if we consider about the emissions regarding to the cooling
Paula?
sector, yeah.
I'm sorry, your connection seems to be a bit bad. Could you maybe turn off your camera?
It's better now?
I hope so. We can try.
Thank you, Paula.
So I was just mentioning that based on the current policy, between now and 2050, the installed capacities of cooling equipment globally, we have that in the year 2022, it was installed cooling appliances, it was installed globally around 22 terawatts in 2022. And if we consider some scenarios here, I brought this graphic here in order to show you that it can be growth if we consider a business as usual scenario, that it can have a growth factor from 2.6%, which means that the emissions of the cooling sector is going to increase. And also, if we consider that the people might have some more money, it can means also an improved access from 2.8 from the growth factor. This means that the electricity consumption is going to increase as well, and is going to be almost double. And also, this means when we talk about the emissions regarding to the CO2 emissions in 2050 is going to be also higher. Can we please go to the next one? In this year as well, regarding to this report that was presented last year during the COP in Dubai, it was mentioned that by the year 2022, 4.1 billion tons of CO2 emissions were emitted only from the RAC sector or from the cooling appliances. These emissions come from indirect emissions. In this case, 2/3 parts comes from indirect emissions, in this case related to the energy consumption, or what we know as scope 2. And also 1/3 parts comes from the direct emissions, in this case related to the refrigerant that is used. Most of the refrigerant that is used at the moment are based on HFCs, and these have a very high global warming potential. The next one, please. This means that integrated action is needed. In this case here in this graphic, I have brought for you some scenarios that were developed on the emissions from the cooling appliances with the time. For example, if we consider without any emissions in 2050, the emissions from the cooling sector can be until 9 billion tons of CO2 emissions. But if we consider the reduction that can be achieved because of the Kigali compliances and also the business as usual scenario on the energy efficiency, these emissions can be reduced until 6.1 billion tons, the value that I have mentioned before. And also, if we can develop integrated actions regarding to passive strategies to address extreme heat in order to reduce cooling demand in buildings, and also to apply higher energy efficiency standards, and also to speed up with the fast down of the Kigali to fast down the use of HFCs as refrigerant in a faster rate that is required under the Kigali Amendment. We can also reduce those emissions and to achieve until 2.3 billion tons in 2050. And if we also achieve that at country level, the grid decarbonization can be done, we can almost reach a net zero emissions from the emissions regarding to the cooling appliances. That's why we need to take an integrated action considering passive strategies addressing this extreme heat, also the energy efficiency, and also consider not to use those HFCs as refrigerant anymore in a faster way than is required by Kigali Amendment. The next one, please. Having said that, I just wanted to introduce the project called Cool Contributions Fighting Climate Change. This project is working in 3 partner countries, Grenada, Costa Rica, and Philippines, and it has started in July 2021, and is going to be until next year in June 25. What we have been done is support our 3 partner countries by improving their national structures related to the NDCs strategies for the RAG sector. Also, what we are trying is to support further countries in order that they address the RAG sector into their NDCs. And also we support them by developing concepts, strategies, and also publication with relevant institutions in different countries, and also with knowledge management as well. The next, please. For us, Cool Contributions for Climate Change is a continuation for the first part that built a very successful cooperation, not only with international organizations, but also with our partner countries, with the public and private sector in their countries. And for us, C42 is a trans-regional project because we are working in 2 different regions, in this case in Latin America and in Asia. In Latin America, in Costa Rica, on Grenada, and also in Philippines for Asia. We are trying to also to provide some ad hoc requests from some other countries in order to support them to address the cooling sector, or the RAG sector into their NDCs. Also, we consider an holistic approach for climate change strategies in order to include the RAG sector into the NDCs plans, and also we contribute to the harmonization between the Montreal Protocol and also the framework for the Convention of Climate Change, the UNFCCC. Both agendas are very important for this project as well. The next one. So the next one is just for question and answer, so happy to answer any question that might arise.
Yes, thank you very much, Paola, for this presentation. Very interesting. And now I would open the floor for any questions to Paola regarding the presentation. and why cooling matters for ambitious NDCs. Feel free to raise your hand or write your question in the chat. Maybe to start, or I thought I would like to ask you, so how would you describe also the situation right now? Have many countries already integrated the cooling sector into their NDCs?
Yeah, according to this report that I have mentioned at the very beginning of my presentation, according to the report, around 73 countries have already mentioned the cooling sector into their NDCs. Some examples, for example, can be Pakistan, that takes a prioritization on the cooling sector and also include the development of a national cooling action plan. Some other country might be also Cambodia and Vietnam as well. But also we have seen that in our partner countries, the 3 ones where we have been working, they have already included their NDCs into their NDCs, the RAC sector. But we have seen as well that Grenada has a very leading position at the moment for the activities that they have been doing as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this actually sounds very good. Any other questions to Paola before moving on to the next presentation? Okay, then I would move to the next topic. And now that we know why the cooling sector is so important for NDCs, Irene Papst from Heat GmbH will provide us with a presentation on tools and guidance to integrate the cooling sector into NDCs. Also here, a few introductory words. Irene Papst is a senior advisor from the consulting firm Heat and has been working on topics related to the RAC sector for 15 years. She has been advising many countries on NDCs for the refrigeration and air conditioning sector, and her expertise ranges from inventories over MRV systems to sustainable ODS and HFCs bank management. And this being said, thank you, Irene, for joining us, and the floor is yours. How would you prefer? Do you want to take over the presentation, or should I have a few slides here from your presentation? Okay.
Exactly. Thank you, Tizian. I think it's fine if you click those. There are not so many. Once I share then my screen, then I would need control, but leave that for that. Also thank you, Paola, for the introduction. I think looking at the people online in this meeting, I think we don't have to convince anyone that the cooling sector is important. It's more about how convince other members of the government or other departments in the government or technicians or other companies to actually join forces and move the sector towards more sustainable cooling. And I don't have the silver bullet for that, but I think the more we talk about it, and also I would say the consultation hour starts now, so I invite everyone here to interrupt me, ask questions, or also bring positive examples if you have some from your background, what has actually worked in your circumstances. So to really make it a more lively discussion, not just me talking. I think I gave this presentation really quite some times already in different arenas, and I would like to hear from others where the real problems are. And so inviting everyone to participate here. Having said that, maybe you show me the first slide or us the first slide. I'll do very quickly a rationale and barriers because I think we all are very familiar with the topic. Provide you a little bit with our partner country example, and then jump into the guideline and then also the quick analysis to make it a live presentation. So for the rationale, and Paul and me were reading the same publications. You recognize the picture here on the side. I also put the QR code here if you want to quickly look at it. Well, it's not quickly because it's a quite comprehensive report. But I think, well, we all know that cooling demand is growing, not only because of warmer climates, but also of increasing living standards. That's something positive in one hand, but we just need to, to make it work so everyone can enjoy the comfort of cooling and be safe in warming environments, but not warming up the planet anymore. And we all know that it's an integrated topic. It's not only the NOUs anymore. Before it was F-gases and ODS and ozone-depleting substances, and the NOU could actually work more or less on themselves, supported by implementing agencies. That has surpassed. So now it's a topic that concerns the gas, it concerns the energy efficiency, but it concerns the buildings and concerns planning, of urban planning, of buildings planning, of sustainable buildings. So this is something where a lot of different departments have to work together. And this is, for one thing, a problem sometimes because you need to bring a lot of people together, but it's also a chance because it comes from more angles. And once different proponents are supportive, then it can also get a momentum on its own. And that's why I think NDCs are really important to be used here, since it's a topic that has a relevance for the development of a country, for the well-being of people, but needs to bring different departments together. And also, of course, the implementing force on the ground, being the distributors of equipment, being the technicians who service this, and also, last not least, the end users who need to be supporters of that. So it's a topic that addresses many, many different people. And that's why I think it needs attention also in the NDCs. We have clearly outlined policy options. It's not rocket science. So once a country got the political power and the political will, I think it's rather straightforward what to do. But it's more about, as I said, bringing the right people together. And also since last December, when the Global Cooling Pledge was launched in Dubai, at the COP, there is also a public momentum, I would say, where around 70 countries now joined. And also here, it's nice to have it in the NDC. So it's actually important to have it in the NDCs because the cooling pledge asks for some very tangible results and tangible action. And where should it be reported if not in the NDCs? So there is also something that has to do with transparency and bringing together the data. So I will not talk about the graph. Paula did that already, so we can go to the next slide. And I also said a bit already about barriers, but I think one of the most barrier is that it's still not so visible in many countries what is actually the impact or what can be the impact if the cooling sector is actually really tackled. And I saw it quite often that in a lower level, people are motivated, but there is not so much political support on a higher level to really make different government departments work together and to get something going. I think the least who needs to talk and be involved is the ozone unit, is the energy efficiency department, and also physical planning for buildings. Of course, there are different names for different departments in different countries, but I think you get my point that this is the least what needs to be combined. There is also still an issue on the reporting of HFCs. So the greenhouse gas reporting in the national inventory reports of HFCs are still not mandatory in all countries. So that means there is still some reluctance to do it, and there is not much traction from the climate change division or the people who are doing the inventory, because there's still a lack of data and it's not really known what is the impact of different of the gases on the overall emissions. So doing a tier 1 reporting is not so difficult as all countries actually report to the Montreal Protocol, but it's also a matter of communication and data sharing. And that brings me to the last point, that we still have limited data availability, even though we have HCFC phase-out management plans. We have in few countries now already starting Kigali implementation plans. So actually the sector should be well studied. But all those plans usually do it via a little survey, which is a one-time data collection, which is needed for the planning of different activities. But what is still lacking is an ongoing monitoring of what's happening in the sector on a lower level. So in terms of which applications, which energy efficiency, which refrigerants are used. So to really be able to track action. And this also links back to the NDCs, because if you want to put actions in the NDCs, you also need to monitor them and report on progress. I think there is also a barrier that countries don't want to commit to something where monitoring is difficult. Yes, I think we jump to the next one on Grenada. Some countries are more advanced than others. That's the case for many, many things. And our little Caribbean island is one of the role models, I would say, here. We are really proud to work with Grenada since, I think I was there the first time in 2016. So that's already 8 years past. But only this year, we really found that the National Climate Change Committee really got attracted to the cooling sector and really saw its impact. So even there, it took us quite some years, even though there was a lot of things happening. So we did an inventory. We developed a National Cooling Action Plan that was endorsed in 2021. We're revising it now because some things already need to change. And there's also at the moment implementation plan developed. So actually to answer the question, how to implement the NCAP in terms of what needs to be done, how much money is required, who should be at the forefront, who needs more training, for example. So we really want to tackle the building sector. So this is a whole new field. Usually NOUs work with technicians, and that's great. But if we want to tackle the building shell and insulation, a whole new field of technicians, of architects, of construction companies get into the field. And this is something that's not so often done yet in that focus. So this is something where we also will learn again in Grenada and hopefully also bring the results then back to the international community. So just saying, if Grenada can do it, a lot of other countries can do it. They have R290 equipment, so propane equipment of ACs in the country, which is a problem for many countries, but a little Caribbean island could do it. So I think other countries can do it as well. And with that motivational words, I think the next slide is already on the guide, exactly. So that guide was actually published, I think 1.5 years ago, where we really tried to give comprehensive knowledge, how to ideas on how to raise ambitions within the NDCs to a holistic mitigation approach in the cooling sector. There's a 5-stage approach there with an extensive list of possible measures that could be taken, and also a benchmarking tool to provide a little self-analysis, how ambitious a country is, and also provide an extensive list of links to other background information. So, I mean, ProClima works in this field since 30 years, and there's a lot of publications that are also updated once in a while. So we provide a long list of further reading and further materials on the different topics to really provide no excuses for any immediate action. And I think with this, you also see the QR code here, but we can also jump into the guide itself. I thought it's a bit more lively than presenting again more slides on what is in that topic. So I think you should see my screen now. I just lost you for a moment and I need to get you back.
Yes, we see your screen.
Perfect. So that's now the live content here. And Tizian, can you help me to have an eye on the time, because I tend to get excited and then talk and talk and talk. So
sure,
you can interrupt
I will
me.
do that. Okay.
So first a look on the contents. I think we don't have to stop on any introductory thing. Of course, there is also a rationale there. On the sustainable technology options, that's also a summary. What actually is very obvious, we need to talk about reducing the cooling demand by well-designed buildings. We need to use natural refrigerants to the extent possible to reduce any emissions of HFCs and also HFOs. And we need energy efficient equipment. And yeah, so that's actually the three core things. We don't jump there. What I would actually draw your attention to is those 3 steps towards ambitious RAC NDCs. Of course, it starts with an inventory. So if any questions are on inventories, you can raise them. I will not talk about that in detail. There was other sections and other webinars on that. But we need to know what you talk about. And as I said, a tier 1 inventory based on Montreal Protocol data is a rather straightforward thing to do. Then step 2 is actually talking about national cooling action plans. And there is actually a really nice guide, and I will jump just into it. A really nice guide here that was not presented by us, but really have detailed step approach. But that's something that takes, I think, quite some time to really do that. So for the next NDC round, you would really be already, yeah, you have to keep moving now to make that happen. But that would be really a way forward to really bring the whole sector together and to really shape a new policy.
Irene, could you maybe zoom in a little bit?
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me, because that's really small. I remember. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So where was it? Just that you also see it. Oops. Okay. My computer is tricking me. Okay. Now I'm lost. So what I also like it's a clickable content, so you can actually click back and forth, or at least back. So it was this one here, and then we have to click slower, otherwise it's, yeah. So this is the example here that was done by the Cool Coalition in an extensive revision process. So I think that's really a broad process here with country mapping and planning and stakeholder consultations, and then in the end an implementation guide how to really do it. And I really would say that would be the gold standard. But there could also be shorter ways if there is not enough political will to do such things. I think any action, any also more isolated action is also worth the effort. And actually we'll go back up to not lose time. So what we have here in the content still, so I would say the NCAP actually could even link step 2, step 3, step 4 all together. Maybe step 4 is then something that really links or put it in the NDC context to also see how it's combining with the country baseline, how it can really fit into the targets, how that is done from a methodological point of view. But I think this is rather straightforward. If the plan is there, what needs to be, what can be done. And step 5 is then tracking and monitoring, reporting and verification of the HFEUs and the emissions in different sectors. So there's also a whole booklet on that, how to do MRV, we call it blueprint, and gives a lot of ideas how to do that. That's also a publication that is referenced in that document. Before I jump to the benchmarking tool, which I also would like to show you, I just want to draw your attention to that extensive list in the technical annex. So we really made a point here to list a lot of different policy options that are there that can be used depending on where the country is. Policy options to address refrigerant-related emissions, so to have regulatory instruments, to have financial instruments. So financially would be any kind of tax or levy or things like, or market-related instruments. So there is really a lot of different ideas what the country could actually do, depending where the political will is. Also capacity building for technicians and regulatory instruments for end-of-life treatment. So the same goes then for energy-related emissions. We have the same. So you can see that from page 44 to 80, that's a lot of resources on that. Any questions so far? Do you want me to go to some specific issue before we jump to the benchmarking tool?
So feel free to unmute yourself, or you can also ask in the chat. Eva Tomlinson asked the name of the source. Please remind us of the name of the source.
Okay, so that's and I'll jump to the page. You will also, as I said, you have the link in the presentation, but this is Raising Ambition in NDCs through Holistic Mitigation Approaches in the Cooling Sector, which is available from the NDC, from the Green Cooling Initiative's website. If you go to News and Media, you can just search for NDCs and then you will find this publication here. And you can download it over here. So that's yeah, easily available, I would say. So when we go to the benchmarking tool, I really had a trouble myself to find it actually on the website. So that's why I'm going to show you two options how to find that benchmarking tool. One is to just write here in the search function here, self-analysis or benchmarking, then you will find it right away. If you want to click it, it's on green cooling on help desk, and then you have to scroll, and below there you have NDC publication and supporting tools. When you click here, you find then here the quick analysis. So you really have to know what you're searching for to find it, but now you know where to search for, so no excuses. So that tool was actually something we developed here to just hopefully spark a bit of interest and to analyze where the ambitions of countries are. And I just want to say, first of all, when we did it for the first time for our partner countries, most of it was red, so very low ambition. But we recently redid it in Grenada, and there was a lot of yellow and a bit of green. So it's really setting a high ambition line. So don't be disappointed if a lot of red bars appear if you do it for your specific circumstances. It's actually meant as an encouragement to change something and provide ideas to change something. And as you don't have to share the results to anyone, I think that's fine. So what we did is to distinguish a little bit between country categories. So you first have to answer some questions. If cooling equipment manufacturing companies are in the country, I think you also know that from Montreal Protocol circumstances, either servicing only or also manufacturing countries. So I would say now no for only servicing only countries. And then also, what are the key subsectors? There is the question if there is a lot of industrial refrigeration in the country, so a lot of industry. Usually those things links are together. So no to very few would mean a bit of fisheries, a bit of food production, of course, but not a chemical big plant or a lot of production for export or something. So that's why I would stay now for a smaller country that is more self-sufficient and just for its own purposes. And then we jump right into answering questions. First of all, about overall economic-wide targets. So you have three options here. So if there is an economy-wide target declared as only reference to the Kigali Amendment. I know that can be challenging enough, but still the baselines in the Kigali Amendment might provide room for even more ambition. So we consider the Kigali Amendment as a low ambition reference, especially in the NDCs, if there is no further differentiation or any additional action. Or what could also be that a freeze of current levels of HFC consumption would already be quite an ambitious target, but we still consider it medium to have something even more, so to really have already a sectoral target now that puts out really specific targets for specific sectors that might come with the development of the Kigali implementation plans, but we don't see it really often up to now. So this is actually the logic of that. So you click the one that fits most, and then it goes, actually it lists here all the, I would say all of the policy options that we also have in the guideline. So you can say, okay, if there's any financial instruments, either none, or you have a tax to reduce the use of high GWP refrigerants, for example, by a GWP sensitive tax, or you have an import tax reduction. And we gave here even 2 different options here for medium, less than 20% of equipment cost, or more than 20% of equipment cost would be higher. Yeah, so this is to click, and I'll just leave some marks here. So we have then a nice result in the end, maybe make it a bit more colorful. I think this is also yellow. And then have regulatory instruments to reduce HFC production and consumption. So either no regulation, which I don't think is there in many countries since there is often ratified the Kigali implementation, but do you also have green public procurement, for example, or refrigerant assessment on its recyclability with possible restrictions on blends, so to reduce the multitude of blends that are coming in, especially for smaller countries, that might be an option. Or then for regulatory instruments, that's also going to how the technicians actually are supposed to work, to have, for example, mandatory on-site recycling of refrigerants where this is technically possible. Or you have a regulation even to ensure proper leak checks, as for example in the EU FCOS regulation, which we use as a reference quite often, since the new one is even more ambitious, but even the one that was valid until the beginning of the year was already quite ambitious in many parts. So this is how you would click yourself through, and being cognizant of the time, I'll just go a bit quicker here. So we have market-related instruments that would be maybe only for larger countries. If there's Article 6 related activities. Capacity building for technicians should be really something very important also with the QCR system, meaning that registered and certified technicians are also available on a list so that end users can actually pick. Then we have end-of-life management here, for example, the establishment of a waste appliance collection systems or collection points for waste appliances and treatments. Of course, tracking of MRV. So you see it's a really extensive list. And then the second part is on energy efficiency, is to have minimum energy performance standards that are orientated on U4E, so United for Efficiency guidance, where there is also extensive resources on what could be considered an efficient appliance. Or we have how to enforce energy efficiency regulation, for example, via product registration system. That would be really high end, but I think is something that we cannot avoid in the long run to really make highly efficient equipment take over the market. And financial instruments would here be to have sufficient electricity tax to guide consumer behavior towards efficient equipment, or to have financial incentives on investing in high efficiency. So when you now go on continue, then you actually have to fill the form first, but you can also submit that, I think, here. I didn't check that, so that's why I think you have to go back, or you just say print. that's the way of, if you print it, then you have that nice format. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So when you want to print it, then you can really see, and I made a point now to only have greens and yellows here, but this gives you a colorful then impression on how ambitious your country is. That might look completely different, but if you do it now and take up a few inspirations, it might look a bit different in a few years' time. And I think this is something to work towards, since it's of course not about a colorful list, but about the contributions for emissions reductions globally. So I hope it's not me only talking and we get a few questions and a few maybe also discussion points. I mean, feel free to share what has worked in your countries. It's not about only asking me for questions, but also, yeah, to contribute a bit. That would be nice.
Okay, thank you very much, Irene, for this interesting input. It's really good to hear and see those tools and guidances which are already available. Now that we have heard both these informative presentations, we are like already right in the middle of the consultation hour. So please ask your questions in the chat or raise your hand regarding the presentations and regarding how to integrate the cooling sector into the NDCs.
So yeah, I was just looking for, there are the frequently asked questions. So there is also a few questions already answered on the website. And what I would also want to you will say that in the end about the help desk. I don't have to do the advertisement.
True. That's true. Maybe to start, Paul asked a question in the chat. From those tools that have been developed, do we already have lessons learned regarding their use in pilot countries? Any lessons learned from those tools?
I think it's not so much on the tools, it's on the persons implementing it and wanting to change something. So, I mean, we keep mentioning Grenada, but I think we all have to recognize that is because Mr. Smith is really engaged and really wants to change something. And that's why he is very active and looks for support and uses any tool that is possible. And I mean, we wrote so many guidance and so many documents, and we even did a questionnaire before we did that guide to try to make it as meaningful as possible. But it has to be done, and I acknowledge that there's a lot to be done. And with the Kigali implementation plans now coming up and the limited resources in terms of also financial resources, it's really difficult. So it's not about blaming anyone that he doesn't do anything. I don't want to be misunderstood in that way. But whenever something is done, to have a vision, and I think this is also what is needed. Even though it's not done until tomorrow, but to have a vision to avoid the use of HFCs and the use of HSOs as much as possible is something that can guide implementation. And this is something the specific persons can shape. So it's about the person sitting in that position and the resources that person has. It's not about not only the will, but also the resources that are available. I mean, NOUs can be a one-person show, and then it's just about surviving. But that is the political will of the country or limited resources of the country. So yeah, I don't think it's the tool that are lacking. It's more the the attention and the resources in that sector that need to be found.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So we need motivated partners who will use those tools, and then this will be the way forward. Any further questions, either in the chat or you can also unmute yourself? Any doubts regarding the tools that have been presented? I might also ask a second question, maybe. Could we already identify drivers and barriers regarding the implementation of the cooling sector in the NDCs, and maybe also regarding those tools? Whatever helps or whatever we identify as what makes it difficult, maybe.
Well, as I said before, I think what makes it difficult is it's not only the responsibility of one department in a government. I mean, yes, reduction of HFCs, yes, but if it comes to a holistic approach, there's a lot of difficulties that we hear to really link with the energy efficiency department, wherever they are. Maybe there's the same ministry or a different ministry, but to really get them involved and also commit to something. I would be open for talking, but we really hear it really often that those twinning workshops were both, or even drilling workshops with the climate change department together, that they are really important. And also in Grenada, we saw that even though there's so many things done already, and that really takes a lot of time. But I think this is the most important area. Because as I said, it's not a question of what to do. We know what to do. Everyone knows what to do. It's about making it happen and bringing the departments together, and also convincing that this is something in the long run really beneficial for the country, because it reduces peak load energy demand. And this is something that saves millions of investment in new power plants. So it's not something only for the cooling. Cooling is actually a central part of our lives. Maybe not so much in Central Europe, but in many, many other countries it is. And I think given the importance of cooling, I still don't understand why it's not more integrated in the whole policy and in the whole climate change debate of countries. I mean, in Grenada, it's 80% of the energy consumption that can be linked to cooling. 80%. Yes, it's a small country. There's not much industry, but it's really, really a lot. And if this is only like reduced by a third, which is technically possible, that makes a huge difference. And I mean, Klima talks about this for a long time, but yeah, but I think it's getting better. So I think the cooling sector is getting more attention, but it's slow, and we would have liked to have it faster.
Okay, yeah, thank you for your opinion on this also. Yeah, it's a good point to note that the different departments and different partners who have to work together really on this to have this progress. So if there's any question, very welcome to post a question. Otherwise, I would now.
I think the listeners here in the talk, they're just so experienced already. They don't have any questions anymore, and they're doing it
Probably,
anyway.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much, Irene, again.
Sure.
And then I would switch back to the presentation from before. Coming to this slide. So before we are closing this session of today, I would also invite everyone who is not yet part of the Green Cooling Network and also of the Climate and Ozone Protection Alliance to become a member. And we are, of course, happy to hear from you. If you're interested to join, you can find that information also in the chat. And also as a reminder for the tools we talked about for the cooling sector in the NDCs, we invite you to visit and use our NDC help desk. That's a resource for expert guidance in the field of green cooling. Our mission here is to assist policymakers in designing and implementing ambitious NDCs in the cooling sector. And this help desk also includes a contact form, also frequently asked questions, as Irena already showed us, regarding NDCs in the RAC sector, and also a variety of publications regarding this topic. This link you can also find in the chat, and we will be very happy to receive your questions in this help desk.
Just to say here very quickly, Tizian, this is really meant if you're doing an inventory, if you're designing any action, and if you want to mirror anything with a different set of eyes, a different perspective. Really, you're invited to reach out to just have another sparings partner, maybe to think something through or to need some methodological guidance. So it's really about specific questions. Don't be shy, just put your question there. We're really happy to help. The project runs for still 1 year and we still have resources to do that help desk. So it's really something that we're really looking forward that is used. So just to make that a bit more invitive.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Okay, and with this having said, in the name of GSF Pro Klima and the speakers, I would thank you all for your participation and hope to keep in touch and see you at the next webinar. And we will share, of course, the information in this webinar from this webinar. So thanks again. Take care and goodbye. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.